monster-eating humans of Earth. It is I, Skeletor, self-appointed ruler of Eternia and enslaver of worlds. I also love boogie boarding, raising tigers, and attempting to kill He-Man. Now join Arnie, Marjorie, and Stuart as the now-playing podcast Top McKee unlocks Masters of the Universe.
Today we're discussing Masters of the Universe, starring Nicholas Galitzine, Camila Mendes, Allison Brie, James Purefoy, Morana Baccarin, featuring Kristen Wiig, with Jared Leto and Idris Elba as Man-at-Arms, directed by Travis Knight. This is the now playing co-host whose entire life purpose is just to not be weird, and I keep failing, Arnie.
And Stuart.
And this is Marjorie.
So welcome back to our Masters of the Universe retrospective series. 39 years since He-Man was last in theaters, and the excitement's palpable, right? Everybody's racing to theaters to see this.
I don't know about you guys. I went to probably the smallest opening night theater experience of my entire life. 3 people.
Oh, ouch.
40 years after Masters of the Universe bombed in theaters, it appears to be doing that again. What's wrong with He-Man? Why aren't we nostalgic for He-Man in the way that we have been for so many other icons of the 80s?
It is confusing because they spent $200 million making this movie. This is not a cheap movie, and it didn't even make $30 million, coming in well below Scary Movie 6. A little behind the scenes, we talked about should we do the Scary Movie franchise in relation to Scream. If we were looking at our audience numbers, the answer is probably, because more people are seeing Scary Movie 6 than Masters of the Universe this weekend. But it's interesting to me because I do think there is a lot of He-Man nostalgia out there. I did a deep dive because what has He-Man been since She-Ra went off the air and Dolph Lundgren stunk up the screen in '87? What happened to it? Well, in 1990, Mattel decided, let's modernize He-Man. Let's make him a sci-fi experience with the new adventures of He-Man, a new toy line, a new TV series that made He-Man less muscular and modernized him with a ponytail, and Skeletor looked like a gummy candy. Skeletor and He-Man were transported into the future on a different planet. Skeletor aligned with new bad guys, and He-Man aligned with new good guys, and it was awful. It was a really, really bad show. It lasted less than a year. The toy line tying into it died in 1992. And that was the end of Masters of the Universe. There were just no more toys, nothing. What I've read, though, is the advent of the internet allowed smatterings of fans to form groups online, and it started getting some references. Some Simpsons episodes put Skeletor in there. On the internet in the early days, Will Wheaton would do readings of things as Skeletor, and it just slowly built a fan base until they came out with a toy line in the early 2000s called the Commemorative Edition, which was literally just the old figures in new packaging for more money.
But that may be enough. I think that's what some people would want. I want to rebuy my childhood. 20 years later, I'm nostalgic for that. Again, I feel like there was a huge awareness of He-Man in the 80s, and anybody from our generation should want this new movie, should be on that tip.
I think they are. But I think the attempts to reach new generations have failed because all of the toy lines have been aimed at collectors. In 2002, they started a new toy line, He-Man and the Masters of the Universe, and it was a Mattel line, but some very famous toy sculptors called the Four Horsemen were really making them, and they were updated ideas of the old toys. And I remember they came out with a He-Man and the Masters of the Universe TV series in 2002. And Marjorie, I don't know if you remember this. We were living in our townhouse at that time. And I had read about this because I was a Star Wars toy collector. I was buying all the toy magazines. And it was described as a more grown-up He-Man tale. And it was going to provide backstories for characters. And it was going to be a continuing saga, not just a 20-minute episode with a lesson at the end. And so when that episode premiered, I watched it live on television, and Marjorie was like walking around cleaning the kitchen and kept glowering at me as I was watching He-Man. I felt very judged for watching He-Man.
Were you married yet? Like, could she get out of it?
We were married.
Oh, okay. Okay. So 2002, it was right there. That was the year.
I think because I saw this with my mom and my little brother, who was briefly into He-Man, long enough to get a Castle Grayskull and watch the cartoon a few times. I might have more nostalgia for the 1987 movie than I should.
It is tied to nostalgia. It is tied to childhood and who you knew and of that time. Just don't watch it as an adult. Did they fix the problem, Arnie? Was the adult He-Man cartoon adult enough?
It wasn't adult enough for me. It wasn't good enough for me to fight against Marjorie's stares of, why are you watching this? We had one television in a townhouse, and we watched things together, or I put her through hell watching cartoons. So I only watched that first episode. I went back and watched it again. It did introduce a lot of legacy that I really thought we were going to find in this movie, because they started hinting at this in the 80s and never finished it. But Skeletor had been human and named Keldor, and he was the king's brother who tried to usurp the king. And in a battle with Man-at-Arms, acid got thrown in Keldor's face, hence why he became Skeletor. He ran off to learn dark magic and came back to reclaim the kingdom from his brother, and his nephew He-Man kept getting in the way. It was more adolescent age. I don't feel like it was an adult cartoon, but I feel like it was for people who had outgrown the Filmation stuff. It ran for a couple of years, and it had a toy line. And then they continued making toys from 2002 till now. They had a classics line. For a while, it was a subscription service through Mattel. It was so niche, the only way you could get it is by signing up to like a Figure of the Month club, kind of like Book of the Month or the old Columbia House CD thing.
I can imagine that, yeah. Somebody will always want a new monster or creature or whatever, but you couldn't mass market that.
They finally came back to television with She-Ra and the Princess of Power for Netflix in 2018. So 14 years, no media. That's a whole generation of kids who would not be exposed to He-Man. The only people who are buying He-Man toys are in their 40s at that point, I think.
And to reflect, other things like My Little Pony are doing gangbusters.
The bronies, I mean, there were TV shows and all of that.
So they've got to play catch up. And did She-Ra do it?
She-Ra was beloved by some. Now, it was a complete standalone series. There was no He-Man link, no crossover characters. She did say for the honor of Grayskull, but that was it. It was a very anime, serialized story, and it ran for 5 seasons, but only 2 years. I don't understand how Netflix does their seasons. It is a very queer show. Catra's on the bad side, She-Ra's on the good side, but their romantic love for each other eventually wins out overall.
I think we talked about that animated movie. It was always kind of there. Maybe they just leaned into it.
Oh, they didn't just lean into it there. Spinderella and Natosa were a married lesbian couple.
Spinderella, obviously not from Salt and Pepper.
Spinnerella, not Spinderella.
Oh, okay, all right.
And then there was a shapeshifter named Double Trouble, who was a they-them non-binary character. Bo, his parents were 2 men married, and all the characters were teenagers, except, the parents were leading the war, but She-Ra was clearly adolescent, teenager type things. It won a GLAAD Media Award for Outstanding Kids and Family Programming, got nominated for a Daytime Emmy. But I remember aggressive hate from fanboys when this came out in 2018. Keep in mind, this was around the time of The Last Jedi.
Arnie, do you remember they had the big She-Ra display at New York Comic Con that year?
I don't.
I went through it, thinking it'd give me some He-Man nostalgia. No, it kind of felt pandering because they made it pink, which is not a color I associate with She-Ra. And you go through this and there's some photo ops, and at the end you get a She-Ra cardboard tiara. It was okay. I didn't have to wait in line, which is the only reason I did it.
That says something too.
You know, watching the She-Ra show, I thought it was okay. I thought it was very anime. I thought it was very teen still. It wasn't something I'd choose to continue watching. But based on the success of She-Ra, Netflix announced 2 new He-Man series.
This I know about. I promised you guys I would try to catch up. I watched the holiday special from the old days, which I really did enjoy. And then, Kevin Smith, I got through 2 episodes of this.
I really liked Masters of the Universe Revelation. Kevin Smith as the showrunner and writer, I kind of had a bad feeling about that. I learned later that a lot of fanboys did not like this series because, spoiler alert, episode 1, He-Man is killed. And it's a Teela series with Sarah Michelle Gellar as Teela, and then Mark Hamill as Skeletor. I thought he did pretty good, even if it was a little bit like his Joker voice, but a very different interpretation. But it's supposed to be a continuation of the Filmation series, like the next day. But this was really more grown up. It was a mini series of 10 episodes that had a overriding arc. New things happened, like Skeletor got the power sword and said by the power of Grayskull and became Skeletor. Teela became a new sorceress, and that's kind of fitting because the Teela figure way back in 82 was supposed to be the sorceress until the cartoon put a bird on a woman's head and she was sorceress. So I really liked this. I've watched 8 episodes of it and I'm going to finish it. There's 2 more episodes in season 1 and then 5 episodes in season 2 and it came to an end. But I'm going to keep watching. I liked that a lot.
And so this is the most successful He-Man in your adult life that you've experienced so far. Now that we're getting to this movie, you endorse Kevin Smith and no other.
Yeah, for adults. I endorse the Filmation nostalgically for children 8 and under. I watched it when I was 10 or 11, but still, 8 and under, I think, for Filmation He-Man. And maybe 8 to 10 for She-Ra, because I think it's a little bit darker. But Masters of the Universe Revelation, if you can get past the fact that it's Kevin Smith, and yes, there are Fisto fisting jokes, a lot of Fisto fisting jokes.
Oh, a lot.
You mean in the cartoon?
Yeah.
Okay, because they'll be repeating them in this movie.
But I think that being a Kevin Smith PG-13 rated cartoon didn't bring in new people. This is appealing to the fanboys who are Kevin Smith's age and my age, right? And then a lot of fanboys didn't like it because they felt it was too woke by being a Teela show instead of a He-Man show.
That was my impression when I watched it. I was like, uh-oh. As soon as Teela was the one trying to save the day, I was like, I know how this is going to go. Culture war.
Yep, and He-Man does come back, spoiler alert, and the show is called Masters of the Universe, and I liked the fact that it was more than just He-Man. I liked that it was about the Masters of the Universe. But fanboys dug up Kevin Smith clips because Kevin Smith in the promo was like, I grew up with He-Man, I love that cartoon. But they found old podcast clips of him going, I never liked He-Man, He-Man's nothing to me. So they're calling him a fake fan who ruined He-Man by making it a Teela show. The other series Netflix announced at the same time started in 2023, and this is very much a kid's show again. It's all CG animation. It reminds me of the Transformers Rescue Bots kind of look. And He-Man is a young kid running around with Cringer and Teela. And everything is just so silly and safe. I don't know who it would appeal to. They say it's for kids. I think it's not colorful enough for young kids, too confusing for slightly older kids, and too dumb for then kids 10 and up. So I just think He-Man appeals only to Gen X. If you grew up with it, if you grew up with Dolph, if you grew up with the toys, if you're 50, then this is for you. But when we went to a full theater. I think, 2 kids, 3 kids, and they were dragged there by much older parents.
Yes, and they cried and fussed during the whole movie.
Yeah, no, there was 3 dudes that were in their 50s and clearly were into the toys back in the day. I think there was like one person way in the back. I heard her cheer when She-Ra showed up. That was the only noise I heard.
Oh, we had some applause in our theater for sure. Some from Marjorie, I'll spoil.
I think anybody can guess why I clapped.
We'll get there.
But no, it was a full theater at 5 o'clock on a Thursday night at the D-box seats. Oh my God, this thing, have you ever had like a lazy boy massage chair that just vibrated nonstop? That's what this experience was like. It just was a constant shake. But yes, our theater, I could tell, was not indicative of national interest in Masters of the Universe.
And I want to point out, they've been trying to make this movie for a long time. Maybe something to point out on your timeline that might help explain why we got this movie at this time is Mattel had Barbie, right? 2023, such a huge hit for them. They were able to make the whole world care about their doll line and used humor to sort of reflect on how Barbie had helped and hurt the culture, right? It gives direction for the movie we're about to watch, I think, to know that Barbie was this phenomenon. And if we did it for girls, now we can do that for boys.
Yeah, this thing had a long development hell history. Ever since the toy line revived in 2002, they really wanted to make a movie. And it was going to be a John Woo film.
No, dear God.
Then the 300 came out, and they're like, oh boy, the public loves oily muscle men. So Joel Silver was taking over and going to make it like the 300 with artificial backdrops and a bunch of ripped dudes with spears.
Yeah, that's what I mean. I think the obvious thing you do is you make it Game of Thrones. You make it this grim, tough swords and sandals movie that it ends up being this meta comedy. Again, I'm blaming Barbie.
Then Sony got the rights from Warner Brothers in 2009. They hired John M. Chu of Step Up fame to direct.
G.I. Joe, right?
Yeah, he did G.I. Joe and Gem and the Hologram, so he had his action figure movies already before he'd make probably his best movie with Crazy Rich Asians and then his big money movies with the Wicked Ones. But that lasted for about 7 years of development when Sony got a new script and hired McG to direct.
Charity's such a nice thing, you know, with those poor directors that don't work anymore but used to be the it guy.
Less than a year later, McG was gone. David S. Goyer of Blade fame and co-writer of Dark Knight movies was brought on as a new rewriter and then a director for the film.
Yeah, I ain't even mad at you anymore. It's been so long since we've had to watch his garbage comic book movies. I forgot.
Then he was out, and an actor I'm not familiar with, Noah Centineo, announced he was He-Man in a 2021 film that would shoot in 2020.
Well, we know what happened to that.
2022, Netflix is doing its He-Man stuff. They got the rights to a live-action film after the success of the Kevin Smith stuff. They were going to make a He-Man film. 2023, Netflix is like, we're not going to do it. So Amazon steps in and says, if Netflix won't do it, we'll take your crumbs.
Yeah, I noticed that. This is coming to us from MGM Prime.
Mm-hmm. And then 2024, they announced Travis Knight as director. We have talked about Travis Knight. He had made, in my opinion, the best Transformers movie with Bumblebee.
Whatever. Yes, exactly. He's already done an 80s toy line movie, and so why not let him? And he also, it should be said, he did some of those stop motion things. I don't think it was Coraline, but he definitely did Kubo and the Two Strings.
Yeah, and he was co-writer on Paranorman, and I learned a little bit more about Travis Knight as part of this. He's not a Nepo baby, but he certainly didn't come up through the ranks. He's the son of Nike's co-founder, and if you read his wiki, it's like he wanted to be a rapper, so his father got him a label. And then he wanted to be a director, so his father got him projects. I mean, his father bought Travis Knight into the industry, but Travis Knight had the skill to make Bumblebee and stay in the industry. They're not going to hire him just because of who his dad is, unless his dad's bankrolling the whole film.
We'll see if Dad can keep it rolling after this bomb.
And in September 2024, they announced the casting, including Jared Leto as Skeletor. I had to look it up. I mean, would they really hire Jared Leto after Morbius? Yes, 2 years after Morbius, but before Tron released, at least, they hired him.
You know, there is a history of this, and Nicolas Cage would be another one, but like, it's so weird sometimes when people win Oscars and then choose the roles that they do. He could have had a very, very different career of doing grimy indie films and playing actorly method parts, and that he's just done toy movies, kids films. So strange. And you can't tell it's him. The CGI sheen that they put on him, at no point do we see his face.
I have to think they wanted Jared Leto to be the face of this, because when I'm watching the promotion for this movie, they have no one to go on the talk shows. They sent He-Man, but who is he? I looked him up. I mean, we saw him as one of the boyfriends in The Craft 2, and he was in a comedy that sycophant Jimmy Fallon said was very funny called Bottoms, but this guy is not going to have people tuning in. They're putting Alison Brie on all the talk shows because they've got nothing else. Nobody else here has any recognition. And I gotta think they wanted Jared Leto, but last June, 9 more women accused him of improprieties that made him persona non grata. I really thought you wouldn't hire Jared Leto and not show his face in this movie. I thought for sure we were going to replay that 2002 thing where he starts off as Keldor and he has Jared Leto's face and then gets acid in it and becomes Skeletor. But no, the studio has asked Jared Leto, please don't do press for this movie because we don't want to be tied to you.
It's not really his movie anyway, and this is a movie that's not traversing in star power, right? The stars are the toys. You've got to want to finally see your toys come to life. And I will say this much. Having rewatched that 1987 Dolph movie, they did not honor the toy line, right? Like nothing about that looked even remotely like what we played with. And so that's the satisfaction. We finally get to see our play sets done with $200 million. And I think that should have had more people showing up.
Did they overestimate the nostalgia of He-Man, though?
I know He-Man's not Barbie, but Barbie's phenomenal intake would make you believe that at least a fraction of that audience would show up.
But Barbie has been around since, what, the 50s?
Multi-generational.
Yeah, He-Man was 80s, and it didn't last long, and they designed the toys first, and then like, we need a cartoon about it. I just don't think that it has the nostalgia and want for it that Barbie did. And it's like a very small subset of people that are buying these toys, and people are like, yeah, it's a movie. But at some point, we've got to stop this.
I think this will stop it. I honestly believe no matter what critics say, no matter what we say, I believe this movie doesn't have the power, and this will be the last He-Man cinematic adaptation ever. I think, like Stretch Armstrong, it's going to be relegated to the past. They may still try cheap TV stuff, but it was such a product of the 80s. You know, it was around the time the comic book still had ads where the nerd gets sand kicked in his face and then he orders some miracle drug out of a comic book and comes back as a He-Man to beat up the guys who kicked sand in his face and get the girls. The Arnold Schwarzenegger 80s is where He-Man lives, and I just don't think people want it anymore, except Gen X, and we're aging, we're dying. There's not going to be an audience for He-Man in 30 years. We
are living in an interesting time in terms of gender identity, and I do think I read these articles about young men not having role models, and this is an opportunity to speak about young white men experience, right? Like that has not been a thing for a while. Here's, again, like Barbie, where we can talk about how Barbie gave women bad self-image. We can redress that, right? We can go back and talk about what is it to be a man. This this movie will make that attempt with humor to try and satirize as well as celebrate this 80s doofus.
Sorry, now I'm going to call him that 80s doofus from now on. Thanks.
You're welcome. But you know what? If you wanted to reach young people, why is your food promotion at Denny's?
Yeah, that is like bizarre. Now, you went, didn't you?
So yeah, I decided I would just go all out. I also went to a Krispy Kreme. Ostensibly, you can get He-Man donuts there.
I don't know why they did Krispy Kreme. With Man-at-Arms, this seems like a shoo-in for Dunkin' Donuts.
They probably pitched Dunkin', and Dunkin' was like, no. They saw the pictures from this one, and they're like, no, give it a Krispy Kreme. Although all they did was take last month's pie donuts and stick a He-Man icing on it. But the cherry cobbler from last month is now a He-Man donut.
I'm a little concerned you are so up on the Krispy Kreme menu changes.
No, I buy them for work. I bring them into my office. I usually get the specialty donuts, so I would have eaten this thing regardless. But no, I drove 60 miles out of my way to go eat at Denny's. All I can say is my stomach couldn't handle it. They had this He-Man burger. It's not as big as the pictures would have you believe, but it's bacon and shredded beef and, like a hamburger patty and pickles and all this shit on it. And I did end up vomiting half of it out in the bathroom. And I gotta say, Skeletor's shake, it goes down blue, but it comes back pink. Fun fact. What a bad omen, right? And then all right, pull it together, Stuart. We gotta go sit down and watch this movie. And that's how I walked into this thing, having just heaved up dinner.
I gotta say, though, I was kind of hyped for this movie. I was excited to see it, even though I thought it would be wretched. But yet, despite my expectations, I guess because I've been living on Eternia for a couple of weeks with all of these shows, I even read some of the young adult prequel novel for this. They did come out with a Teela novel when Teela was 14 years old. She had to make an uneasy alliance with Evil Lyn, and Evil Lyn was trying to overthrow Skeletor.
Tell me more. Boy, do I really want this story. If you're going to have a prequel, I want to know what happened to Adam for the 15 years he went from being a child dumped in Oklahoma City to an adult.
Yeah, I'm not going to finish this book. I read enough, and then I pulled a When Harry Met Sally and just jumped to the end and read the last chapter to see how it ends.
No one's going to read this book. No one reads anyway. And yes, it's always interesting. I mean, I find failure interesting when something goes this wrong. I assume there's toys as well, right? They must have put out a new toy line.
The toys are still going gangbusters. They're still making a lot of He-Man toys. Mattel has started doing crossovers where somebody posted on Twitter a display of the He-Man movie toys. And I'm like, why is Panthro there? Panthro's a Thundercat, but they've started doing He-Man Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle crossover toys, He-Man Thundercat crossover toys, comic books. The toy collector market for Masters of the Universe is still strong. Amazon has been recommending to me the Amazon exclusive Fisto Ram Man 2-pack, and I'll say if I were to buy any toys from this movie, that would be the 2-pack I would buy.
I'm going to say that we really shouldn't buy any toys from this movie.
I'm not going to. If I was going to really buy anything, it would be the Castle Grayskull popcorn bucket, which is awesome. It has a drink container pillar, it has a popcorn container, and then it has a candy container, and like a gumball machine, M&Ms can roll out the mouth of Castle Grayskull. I thought that was pretty cool.
I did ask the Cinemark employee last night about the sword drink container, the one that's 3 feet tall. And she said no one had ordered it yet, and she didn't know how they were going to hold it in the movie if they did.
Yeah, did you see that one, Stuart? It is a sword replica, but they're calling it a cup. It's plastic. It has no way to be set down or put in a drink holder. If you've ever been to Yard House and ordered half a yard, this is about that size, but you have to hold it the whole time and then turn sideways to drink out of it and put a sword up to your mouth. And I guess you scream, I have the soda or something.
It has a straw.
And yet no one's drinking. And I do think that that's interesting, that the push is there, the money is there, they wanted this to happen. Maybe it will be a success for Mattel in terms of toys, but I think we're processing failure, and I'm so curious as to why this has gone so wrong.
Again, I just think it's lack of nostalgia and lack of star power. We say that we are in an era where stars don't matter for movies. But all I can think about with this Masters of the Universe is Captain America, the First Avenger, where Chris Evans was not a star at that time. The villain, Red Skull, was not a big star. He acted in a lot of stuff. Everyone knew Agent Smith, but nobody's going to go to a Hugo Weaving movie. And then Thor, nobody knew Tom Hiddleston or Chris Hemsworth when Thor came out. Natalie Portman, that's who they knew. But she was such a side character, and neither of those movies made $200 million. They were some of the lowest grossing films in Marvel history. Then it made stars, but without a face to put there, a known quantity there.
I hear you saying that star power and it being in the 80s, it had to be there kind of thing, are why younger people are just not going near this.
You know who they put out on the talk circuit also? Dolph. And I'm like, is Dolph in this movie? Is Dolph King Randor? That's what would make sense to me, is make Dolph King Randor, if you're going to do that kind of legacy sequel thing, the passing of the torch. And Dolph and this new He-Man did all these talk shows together and talked about their workout routines in the 80s versus now and what it was like to make He-Man. And Dolph is saying in the past, the only thing he was ever asked to autograph was Drago stuff. And now He-Man fans are coming out and declaring love like Marjorie has for that 87 film. And he's getting more autographs. But I'm like, why are you putting Dolph out there? I was confused. And then when his cameo happens in this movie, I'm like, all right, well, I guess. But this is how desperate they are to have somebody with name recognition out there pimping this movie.
Well, again, you're going to a talk show? Ask anyone under 30 what's their favorite talk show.
Okay, when I say talk show, I'm talking YouTube. I'm talking like Fandango, Chicken Date, that kind of shit.
Whether or not it makes any money is incidental to our concerns. We're here to talk about whether it's a good film. Arnie, why don't you give them the plot?
On the planet Eternia, the evil Skeletor, played by the evil Jared Leto, attacks the capital city of Eternos. King Randor, played by James Purefoy, and Queen Marlena, played by Charlotte Riley, are captured. The king's man-at-arms Duncan, played by Idris Elba, is gravely wounded by Skeletor's minion Trapjaw. The king's unserious 10-year-old son is raced to Castle Grayskull, where the sorceress, played by Morena Baccarin, gives him the magical Sword of Power and then teleports him to Earth, Oklahoma specifically, to hide him and the sword from the forces of evil. While being teleported, Adam drops the sword. 15 years pass with Adam living in Oklahoma City, and though he attended schools, we had a flashback, and he's now an adult, played by Nicholas Galitzine, and he has a job in human resources. He is obsessed with finding the sword. And he's not very bright, telling everyone he meets about his growing up on an alien world with such weird heroes as Ram Man and Fisto. An internet connection finally points Adam to the sword, which is part of a display at a comic book store. Adam steals the sword, which I guess sets off a transmitter alerting those on Eternia to its location. Skeletor sends his animalistic servant Beastman to get the sword, and when the hairy brute attacks Adam, he's saved by Duncan's daughter and his childhood crush, Teela, played by Camila Mendes. She takes Adam and the sword back to Eternia, where Skeletor has burned Eternos to the ground. What few heroes remain are in hiding and don't believe Adam to be the returned prince. The former man-at-arms Duncan is now a drunk. Skeletor's army attacks, trying to get the sword, and Adam has a vision of the sorceress telling him the words to utter. He raises the sword and says, "By the power of Grayskull, I have the power," and transforms into a muscular brute who easily defeats Trapjaw hand-to-hand. Wanting the sword, Skeletor convinces Adam to surrender in exchange for the release of his parents, who've been in Skeletor's captivity for these 15 years. Adam goes to Skeletor's headquarters, Snake Mountain, where the king is captive, and Adam is put under a spell by Skeletor's sorceress Evil Lynn, played by Allison Brie. But when Adam pushes off the spell, it causes a roof to collapse and Randor is killed. Adam returns to his normal form and is put in a prison with his mother, the Queen, and the rest of the heroes of Eternia. Skeletor tries to access the power of the sword, but it doesn't work. Evil Lynn suggests a spell cast at Castle Grayskull might unlock the power. Adam uses his HR skills to rouse the forces of good to break out of prison, and they fight back against Skeletor's minions. Adam reunites with his green pet tiger Cringer, and they go to fight. Duncan gets his rematch with Trapjaw and kills the green cyborg with a grenade. Evil Lynn and Teela fight, as do Cringer and Beastman, but Skeletor uses his magic staff and shatters the Sword of Power, then stabs Adam with the broken hilt. Dying, Adam has another vision of the sorceress who tells him the power was never in the sword, it was in him all along. He raises the broken sword and says the incantation. The sword reforms itself and he again becomes the unstoppable muscle man. He tries to get Skeletor to surrender, but he will not, so Adam punches him repeatedly. Skeletor fires a magic beam at Adam, who deflects it back at Skeletor, and the evil one disintegrates, his skull left on the floor. We jump 6 months later, and Eternos has been rebuilt, Queen Marlena rules the kingdom, and Adam is a hero. Then the wizard Orko shows up to give us the life lesson from the movie. Duncan and Marlena wonder if they'll ever find Adam's lost sister, leading to a She-Ra tease, and Evil Lynn picks up Skeletor's skull, and we hear the evil wizard laugh as credits roll.
As we get started, we got the MGM logo. Talk about flashback. Didn't realize MGM was even still around, but instead of having the typical lion, of course they got to put Battle Cat in there roaring.
I love that. That is great. I like it whenever they can do things like that. All the way back to Raiders of the Lost Ark, where the Paramount logo became the mountain in the distance, having Cringer roar. It was fun. But then I saw the Amazon Studios logo, and I didn't know this was an Amazon Studios film. Why am I in a theater? Why is this not on Prime? And then I'm going to get a product placement later on that smacked me in the face. And I'm like, oh God, this is almost as bad as War of the Worlds, where Ice Cube had to make an Amazon order to save the day.
Yeah, it is replete with product placement. But as we get started, the voiceover tells you, dudeish, right? Jokey. This is not one of those mythical lands where people talk sonorously about how magical everything is. He's like, I swear I'm not high. This is what my planet's like.
I like that he's a himbo, though. Eternia is the beating heart of the cosmos. Grayskull is the heart of the heart. So I guess the heart of the heart of the heart is the power of Grayskull. We're just going to be dealing with like a surfer dude, muscular, not that bright. It's kind of funny.
Was He-Man dumb in the cartoons, or was he dumb when he was Adam?
He never figured anything out. There was never any puzzles. There was never any strategy. Oh, there's a door. Let me punch it. You know, there's a villain. Let me punch them. That's what I saw in that Secret of the Sword movie anyway.
Yeah, I agree. In the old series, I just remember when there's a problem, his strength would fix it. And then they'd tack on some life lesson about how somebody did something dumb and you shouldn't do it because see what trouble it leads to. But no, he has people around him for brains. He's the muscle. I mean, they never portrayed him as stupid, but he was never written as smart either. He never figured it out.
His power was his muscles, and that was the message that was drilled into young boys. If you want to be a He-Man, you have to be big and buff. And I think it's interesting that they're picking up with Adam as a scrawny little child. I mean, he's smaller than anyone else his age. Sure, he's the prince, but he's being beaten by a girl here in arms training as we meet him.
I so related to this kid. He's the worst in arms training and he doesn't want to go and he's beaten by a girl. And it reminds me of when I was that age and I was telling my mom I didn't want to go to tennis practice because I sucked at tennis. And literally I was the worst player in the entire thing. And I never won a single match in the years of tennis training I did. I had bad hand-eye coordination, as he says. And so I'm instantly empathizing with this kid who sucks at it and his parents are disappointed in him. My dad, when he had a son, was like, I have a Pele. And I'm like, no, you have a programmer. Sorry, you hate me. So I totally feel for Adam.
And particularly when his dad comes in there, I mean, he's goofing off with Teela. His dad sees that, calls him a fool, and then really aggressively spars with him with the sword. I mean, nobody, Man-at-Arms would have had a hard time fighting back on that. But yeah, he's one of those jerk dads that puts him on his ass and tells him the world is no place for the weak.
I really, really thought this movie would have a theme. Finishing it, I don't think it does. But at the beginning, Idris Elba, who I love as an actor, he was in Thor, he's here, he's just going to be in these fantasy sci-fi startups. He's giving a speech that I'm going to paraphrase as, there's no such thing as a participation trophy. He's like, there's no statues of losers, no streets of cowards.
And yet he's wearing that outfit.
I found his whole thing kind of puzzling, why his whole story arc was thrown in there, but I was really dreading that the movie would be like this the rest of the way, and I didn't think that I could get through this medieval-esque, Ren Fair-esque story if it was going to be like this, and I really thought I was in for a slog.
Well, I thought for sure, since Adam is our point of view character, and I'm empathizing with Adam here as his dad's beating him up with a sword, and then Man-at-Arms is trying to be supportive, like, stand tall, so when he looks back, he'll see you do not stay down. And the dad never looks back, and I'm like, well, this is going to be a criticism of the manosphere that's going on online, and the ball maxing and things. It's going to be how toxic masculinity is not the way.
It is.
It doesn't commit to that. It never resolves this in any meaningful way.
Well, meaningful is a hard word. We'll talk about it. We can have that debate as we get to the end, but the sword is not the power.
I know that, but the muscles are the power. He still has to be a good fighter to win the approval of those around him.
Yes, I agree. It's a mixed message, but the language I hear is talk is always better than punching.
Except talk never works in this movie. Punching works in this movie.
Look, I didn't say it was a good movie. I just said it's definitely trying to dial into that theme. And again, in much the same way that Barbie had America Ferrera saying, you ruined my life and my self-image, and I hate you, Barbie. We're dealing with the fact that this scrawny little kid doesn't feel like he can be what his dad wants him to be unless he becomes He-Man. And that will get rectified by the end.
We'll definitely talk about it, because I was waiting for that. I was waiting for it to say, you are enough, even if you're not He-Man. And I don't think it ever says that.
The dad literally says that he wishes that he had supported that thinking, but we'll get there. Anyway, it's time for Skeletor. The sorceress is standing in the eye of Castle Grayskull. She's the first to see this onslaught of Skeletor minions flying in for a big old battle as little Prince Adam is licking his wounds.
This is just toy fun. You get Triclops, Beastman, Spikor, Goatman. Did you notice Karg was there? He was one of the original bad guys from the 87 one of the created ones.
I only associated with the Frightwig. I was like, I don't remember him from the cartoon. Sure enough, a creature created from that crap movie, they've jokingly dropped in here as just a little reminder. Not the last one, but a reminder of the original Masters of the Universe.
See, this is where I start to get confused about the people of Eternia and exactly what the hell the species is there. Because there's so many different types of mechanical people or people with weird shit going on. What the hell is Eternia?
I liked the Kevin Smith cartoon for trying to explain some of this by saying there are cults of people who want to improve their body with robotics. And so Fisto and Mechanic and Trapjaw and all of those are just these techno-obsessed people who get replacement limbs like we get tattoos. But Marjorie, it's fantasy. I mean, if you watch Lord of the Rings, you have your orcs, your halflings, your elves, your humans, your tree people.
But none of them are mechanical and have stretchy necks.
That's the fun of my toy is alive. You got to be with that. Because that 87 movie looked nothing like the toys, and these have been lovingly recreated.
And yet updated. I mean, they're not the toys come to life. Beastman looks more like something out of Planet of the Apes than the orange toy I had as a kid, but it's faithful. It's not identical, but it's faithful. And the ships that are coming in, the Roton ships, that's from right when I was getting out of the toys in 84. Again, it's not the toy come to life the way some of these movies do it, but I see that they're being heavily influenced properly. I wasn't familiar with the Skell Knights. They came later. These guys who wear Halloween suits of skeletons that are Skeletor's troops. But it's a big fight, and we get right away. I mean, Ram Man is ramming. Mechanic, I thought his only power was he could, see over tall people. Because as a short king, I have the wish of Mechanic's power all the time. And here he's whipping that around and coiling like a snake around people. I never thought of Mechanic as a badass, but here he's doing this. It's hard to believe the good guys lose.
I don't think it looks as good. When you go to those play sets for Barbie, there was a wow factor. I really could see it and feel it in my audience that, oh my God, that's the dream house. That's the Corvette. They really brought it to life. This thing still kind of looks a little shitty to me.
I can't disagree more. I think the opening shots of this movie during the voiceover, where the camera is swooping through Eternia and we're seeing dragons and the dragon never comes back. I mean, usually when you create a CGI like that, you're going to use the same model again and again. We see the burning deserts that never come back. I love the look of this film, the way it goes through. I love the realism of Castle Grayskull in that it's got vines or something growing down it because it's not really that well kept.
It's the same cinematographer that shot Justice League, and it kind of looks like Justice League to me, where it's some shots look good and some look really shitty.
Admittedly, what I'm talking about was probably done 100% by CG animators, and the cinematographer had nothing to do with it. But I like the way that this camera is constantly moving. I feel it's very kinetic. In these fights, it's doing 360-degree turns. We're getting extended shots, maybe not Orson Welles level long shots, but some of these fights go on, Man-at-Arms here in the hallway. I don't see any cuts in that for a while.
I don't think they're totally nailing the look. The themes, I'm just paying attention to, we have two father figures. Duncan has adoptive daughter Teela, and they survive. She watches him get his ass handed to him by Trapjaw. She's able to save him. I think that's what transpires. She pulls him out of the way of a bomb.
She's adopted? I didn't get that she was adopted.
I didn't get it either.
In all the lore I know, she's his biological daughter.
Okay, I think I read that on Wiki.
Okay, possibly, because, here she's Hispanic, he's African, Eternian.
Do those exist in Eternia? You have a guy with a neck that can go 6 feet tall. I thought it was his daughter.
Yeah, she's the one that kind of saves Dad, and they're really setting up that Teela is maybe undervalued because she's not a man, but that's an arc to follow here.
I enjoy this Trapjaw fight where Duncan loses. The one character design I don't like, though, is Trapjaw. I know that this was a lot of practical costumes on set that were CG augmented. The director tried to stay away from all CG, but something about his face, my first go-to, which nobody's even going to remember anymore, is it looked like a costume from Spider-Man Turn Off the Dark from the Ugly pageant. But then, if I'm trying to get something people have actually seen, maybe the Dick Tracy 1990 movie it kind of looks like, but I just don't like the way the wrinkles are in his face. It looks like a Spirit Halloween mask. I like the jaw, but I don't like what's above the jaw.
I think you're agreeing with me. Some of this stuff doesn't look good.
But I like that his hand keeps transforming, and I really thought they might kill Duncan here. When his hand turns into a gun and he shoots Duncan point blank, I'm like, I could see Idris Elba checking out of this movie early on. I could see him being the tragic early death that must be avenged.
He's the only name I recognize in here, so that would be a mistake. I think they wisely keep him alive, but they have to humble him. If he started off bragging, I've saved your parents' ass and your neighbor's ass, and I'm the man at arms, yeah, you give him the arc of humility, and he certainly will have that. The other father figure gets captured. Randor gets surrounded, and this is our big introduction to Jared Leto. Skeletor, he's trying out a different voice, and I do believe that Jared Leto is doing a Tim Curry voice here. He sounds just like Darkness in Legend.
Unrecognizable in voice, obviously unrecognizable in person. He's in a padded muscle suit. which you can go with or you can't. I went with it. He's like rolling his R's. Somebody said, he didn't say because he's not doing press, but he was trying to come up with a voice spoken by somebody who had no lips. So he was going for that. But if you didn't know it was Jared Leto, you would never know it was Jared Leto.
It's like an avatar skin, right? It's a Navi kind of thing. Like, there's no part of the actor you actually see.
No, his entire body is him in a muscle suit.
That's CGI.
No, watch the behind the scenes. He was wearing a skull mask that was replaced with CGI. That body is entirely Leto in a padded suit.
If you say so. It feels throughout this like he is a CGI creation.
I had to look it up. I was curious. I saw the suit wrinkle, and I'm like, is that a suit? I thought it would be CG, but it looks like a suit. And sure enough, yeah, everything from the neck down is Leto on set in a costume.
And he's a joke, right? They keep that aspect of him. He talks up, what he's about to do and raise his fist in crescendo, and he's surrounded by yes men who are always rolling their eyes and being like, are you done yet?
I felt he could have been more hammy and campy. I think that Alison Brie carried all of it there. Maybe because it had the Paul Lynde voice in the cartoon, and I was really hoping for something like that.
You wanted him to be like that?
Yes. I thought it would have been more campy.
The voice isn't nasally enough, but I like what he's doing. They released this clip of him laughing and then telling people, when I raise my arms, that's done. And Evil Lynn being like, I'll remember for next time, my lord. And I wasn't sure. I'm like, oh, this isn't going to work. But in context, it actually works. I am going with the fact that this Skeletor is silly and egotistical and unmotivated. 2 different times in this movie, they're going to be like, why is Skeletor doing this? And the answer, he's evil. He's the bad guy. He has a skull for a face. This is all we need for motivation for our bad guy in this movie.
Yeah, and he's not really the bad guy, in my estimation. Yeah, he is the thing that's driving Adam to jump through the portal with the sword of power. But the villain is Adam's own perceptions about what his father wants from him.
I think the bad guy's Skeletor, but the sorceress, I was excited. Marina Baccarin here. Firefly, I thought she was really good in that series. I loved her in the first Deadpool movie. I thought she was just a treasure in that movie that really sold the romance between Wade and her. Here, I wanted more sorceress. She doesn't really do much.
You're never going to get me to say those words.
No, I don't know who would want more sorceress except for her, so she'd have more screen time.
Yeah, I've always hated this character. I ragged on her in the cartoon movie. It seems to be pointless. And if they were going to make an influential female character, probably should be the mom.
The Queen never did much in He-Man lore that I know of, other than being an astronaut, and it's dropped here. Send Adam to my home world where they'll never find him. So Adam jumps on the Bifrost Bridge and is sent to Earth, Oklahoma City, but he's so weak he can't even hold on to that sword of power in the tunnel.
Drops it instantly, and we realize everything that we've just been watching is a story he's telling on a first date because he wants Julie to get to know him.
I don't know if this is intentional, but in my mind, I'd like to think that the fact that her name was Julie is an homage to the 1987 one, because that was Courtney Cox's character in that movie.
I bet it is. I bet that is not an accident.
And product placement being what it is, he's trying to pour Coca-Cola into a glass to explain how the power works and all of that. She's not entranced.
I love this where she reaches for the phone and she's like, I have to get this. He's like, it's not ringing. No, I have to get this and leave with it. I am getting out of here because you are a psychopath thinking you're from another planet. He's dumb. I love it.
And Nicholas Galitzine, I recently watched Sheep Detective. He's a major player in it. It's a murder mystery with sheep, so I suppose the sheep are the star, but you definitely will notice him in the movie. He's a comedian, or at least that's my sense of him. They didn't get a muscle guy. They got a guy that would be funny, and that again sets the tone for what they want. A goofball, a nerd. I don't think we're supposed to think that he's built. He does go to the gym, but he's shown up by Dolph Lundgren, right? He's not macho yet. He's trying, but not living up to it. Working out in kitten sweaters.
That's where I clapped in the theater, and that was a really great scene, I thought. Dolph Lundgren did a really good job in that. He's been sick, I don't know if you guys know that.
Oh, no, I didn't know.
Yeah, he had cancer. But I thought that was a really great scene, and there were some claps for me from that.
I didn't know that he would cameo. I find his cameo to be a little useless in that he just drops some non-words of wisdom. It feels like a scene that if it wasn't Dolph, you'd cut and maybe was filmed last minute as an insert just to shoehorn Dolph in there. Like I said, I think Dolph should have been the king.
Not only that, but like, do you really want to get tips for how to be He-Man from Dolph Lundgren? Memory serves, that was an awful He-Man, and I definitely don't think he was definitive in any way. It's not Sean Connery coming back to tell a guy how to be Bond. This is like Woody Allen coming back and telling a guy how to be Bond.
I think nowadays, for the people who are nostalgic for He-Man, they will also be nostalgic for the cheese of the 87 film. But yeah, Adam's Earth life is very weird because he is bringing up this to everyone. And much like the 80s cartoon, he is built. I mean, this is a big guy. He has worked out for this role.
They're hiding that, though. He is always hiding his body. They don't want you to notice in the Adam scenes, in the Earth scenes. When he's working out, he's wearing bulky clothes with kittens on them. You don't see any flesh.
I know, but you could just tell he's a big guy under his pink shirt. I do like that they kept dressing him in pink, just like the cartoon.
Yes, that was intentional, I hope.
Oh, it had to be. You don't just put a guy in pink. I think it's kind of silly that we're just not supposed to notice that he is jacked.
I get your point, but again, I don't think we are. He doesn't realize how built he is. He doesn't believe that he's man enough yet. He's trying, and Dolph is trying to give him tips. But again, he's got in his head, I've got to be the thing that Dad wanted me to be.
And when He-Man comes home from work that day, the score is playing a piano version of The Cure's Boys Don't Cry, which I absolutely love. Again, it fits the themes of this movie, boys don't cry, be a man, and then it does transition into the full Cure version. But I bought the score album for this Masters of the Universe. I've listened to it, and I was so happy the piano version of Boys Don't Cry was on there.
You know, throughout this movie, they're going to play with male archetypes, right? He comes home and his roommate is watching chick flicks, The Notebook, I think it was, and he's crying, but he doesn't want Adam to see that and all of that kind of thing. He works at a job, human resources, where he has to identify his pronouns and such. They are definitely trying to be modern and thinking about men.
I know there was some blowback online because of the he, him on the nameplate there.
I mean, that's a joke. That's a joke about human resources.
Yeah, I thought it was because he's He-Man.
It's both. It's because he's He-Man and he's working in human resources where this is the language of now. And so it's an office comedy for a little bit as he goes through team meetings and I have the power to be the best me and has all this new age self-help speak.
And I did have to enjoy Sashir Zamata from Saturday Night Live as Susie, the head of HR there, who is kind of bad at her job. And they really are poking fun at that culture. I hear you emotionally. I feel you consensually.
You can kiss this job goodbye. Consensually. Yeah, again, the rush of like, I don't want to be sexual in any way because that'll get me in trouble. I'm HR after all. But yes, she's passively aggressively trying to tell him, stop Googling swords or I'm going to have to fire you.
It is kind of funny that he's Googling swords and she's worried about him Googling swords instead of actually just using the company computer to look for weapons.
Yeah, it's both, right? You're not doing your job. And what do we think about an employee that's obsessed with getting weaponry? That's scary, yeah. You shouldn't probably be working in HR. How he got this job is not a backstory they try to explain.
I really wish they did a little, because, like, did he go to college? Did he have adoptive parents? We're going to see a flashback of him as a kid in grade school. He was told to draw a historical figure, and he drew Ram Man, and the teacher's making fun of him. The students are making fun of him. He's a outcast. But does he have adoptive parents? Did he go to college and get a bachelor's to get a job in HR? I'd like to know more about that period. Just a montage. I don't want to spend a lot of time on it, but I want to see a little.
I feel like if this were the Disney Plus show that it should be, you would have had a lot more of that.
Maybe it was like Superman where some kindly older people found him and just took him in.
And you could have run with that. That could have been a joke. That could have been another parody here about Ma and Pa Kent and doing something funny with that stereotype. But this thing is crammed with characters, and quite honestly, it's going to be a long time before he becomes He-Man. It's a big wait, and I think they're trying to get there as fast as they can.
Agreed. And he's been hunting for a sword. A lot of things just happen in this movie. While he's being talked to by Susie, he just happens to get a text. All of his online posts of "have you seen this sword" gets a response. He has to go to the Fright Zone, which, for those who remember She-Ra, that's kind of Hordak, where he came from, was the Fright Zone.
I remember those words. That's the comic book store's name? I didn't notice.
Yeah. I'm geeking out in this comic book store because there's like Kotobukiya statues in the background. I noticed Gladiator Hulk from Ragnarok. I noticed Jean Grey. I noticed Voltron. I'm knowing all these toys, all the Big Jim toys there. That was a Mattel line in the 70s that tried to have a comeback in the 80s.
What was Torok then? Because the sword is actually being held by this Torok statue, I assume is conceptual art for the first doll.
Yes, indeed. When they were trying to sketch the not Conan the Barbarian action figures they wanted to make, one of the first sketches Mark Taylor did was Torak, hero of prehistory. And so they're loving homage of the early history of He-Man.
But yeah, why it actually is here and ended up in this statue is a real puzzler, but they just got to get to it.
So, did he pay $300 to the guy who just, showed him where it was? I was kind of confused by that.
All of that made no sense. Somebody was going to profit off it. I thought he was the owner of the comic book store, and then we meet her, and she's not, but she wants to date Adam, and it just turns into a whole lot of lewd jokes, right? And I think this movie, when in doubt, we're going to make a fisting joke, we're going to have him wrestle with this statue and make it look like they're having some kind of sexual act, approaching strange men and saying, "Do you have my sword?" This is what it does when it feels the flop sweat.
I wish there was more here because we're also going to be told that him getting the sword activates a transmitter that alerts Skeletor, and Beastman is able to go right to the sword. It's not just, hey, it's on Earth, but no matter where the sword moves to, Beastman is going to know and Teela is going to know.
Part of the fun of Barbie was seeing Barbie in the real world, right? They had to do this Earth thing, and they want those jokes, but all of this part is really not helpful. The fact that he had to go to Earth maybe was a mistake. I don't know. Arguable.
I do like when he gets arrested, though. One of the jokes that actually worked for me is the cop saying "cool sword Highlander," and then the other cop who kind of looks like Melissa McCarthy trying to also make a joke and failing. And then a guy in a convertible is blaring "Snaps the Power," which is a song I love. I'm just so happy they did this. And then I couldn't believe they did this. They bring in 4 non-blondes. Now, Stuart, you proudly say you don't know memes. I didn't know this one. One of our listeners, Robert Redden, sent me this video 12 years ago. Somebody went viral by taking old Filmation clips of Adam and having him sing "What's Going On" from 4 Non-Blondes. And then they had Nicholas redo that on The Tonight Show. They recreated the meme with him in a page boy wig. And I really thought 4 Non-Blondes were owned by Street Fighter this year. If you've seen the Street Fighter trailers, that has 4 Non-Blondes.
I've always hated this song, and not just not liked it, despised this song. So I don't want it as a joke. I don't want it at all. I hate it.
I've always liked this song. I think the vocals are really good. It's a nice harmony. I have good nostalgic memories of when that song came out and I was delivering pizzas.
But that woman went on to write a ton of
Yeah. Good for her. I hate this song, and I could not understand why they used it other than it's a moment for Adam to say what's going on as this traffic jam turns into a Beastman fight.
But they used it because of the meme, and that meme is wildly popular.
And I guess for people that are internet savvy, that's comedy today. I'm a little taken back that it's gone this jokey, quite honestly, and that it's taking this long, and that they are happy to have an Adam who doesn't know how to be He-Man.
I was scared coming into this movie because I knew it was going to be an origin story. The trailers told me Adam was on Earth. I saw Adam giving a rousing speech to Ram Man and Fisto. I saw Adam all over the trailers. I didn't see much He-Man, and I was scared this was going to be Thor, the very first one where Thor loses his power for most of the movie and he's not a superhero until the very climax. I was scared coming in, knowing this was a 2-hour, 20-minute movie. He would not say I have the power until the 2-hour mark. I am glad they get to it sooner than that, but origin stories, they have these tropes and you gotta give the character time to become the hero. And yeah, I think they spend too long on some of these jokes, but I do like this fight. It's kind of reminding me of the Winter Soldier with all the jumping off overpasses and...
Of course it does. It looks exactly like it. But here's my question. As I was thinking about it a lot. I had a lot of time to think about it because these scenes go on forever. And again, an hour before we get He-Man. What if we just started on Earth and we didn't know about Eternia and we didn't know about any of it and we could build it as a mystery? Who am I? I just thought I was a foster kid. And we could get to all of this much, much sooner. I mean, an hour to wait to He-Man? Mistake. Huge mistake.
Yeah, it did take a long time. And I feel we probably could have started on Earth and made this a much more interesting movie and save that Ren Fair stuff for another movie that I don't want to see.
You can make arguments pro and con, and they made the choice to establish the world for everyone in the beginning, but it's a long slog, and now they're trying to be funny. And again, I think it's hard to get into the swing of the mood of this movie, but clearly Galitzine is doing his best. Chris Pratt, he's definitely trying to infuse this with some comedy.
I groaned, though, when during this chase, Beastman jumps in front of them, and you think, oh God, what's going to happen? Oh, an Amazon truck driver isn't paying attention to what's in front of him, and hits Beastman, and the Amazon Prime logo fills up the DXL screen for a moment.
And also blowing back into the picture is Teela. But she's all grown up now, and we're going to have a lot of teases that these two, I guess it was a flirtatious relationship in the cartoon. We wanted to see Adam and Teela get together.
I mean, I was a kid. I always shipped main man and main woman together, so yes, but she doesn't seem into it in this.
Oh, she definitely does. They have lots of moments, and then she'll be like, friendship, friendship, friendship. Like, that's the joke, is that they're about to kiss, and then they go, maybe not.
After reading that book, I kind of thought she had a flirtation going on with Evil Lynn for a while, so I wasn't sure if they were going to say she was into girls by the end of this.
No, they definitely have a flirtation right from the get-go. But these actors, do you like them? I know you don't know them, but now that they're giving these performances, I can't say I fall in love.
I didn't fall in love, but I think that he did dumb really well. And he had a lot of good face acting for the reactions and stuff. I will tell you that nobody else that I was aware of before this movie made any impression whatsoever. They all kind of felt like dollar store versions of other characters we've seen in movies. But I did like him and his funny faces he made. Like, he played dumb so well. And I wonder if he has a future perhaps in more comedic roles.
Yeah, Sheep Detective. That's what I mean. It's like, it's an unkind thing to say, but he has a dumb-looking face.
He does have a dumb-looking face, and I don't know if like he's intentionally doing that based on what he's promoting.
Yes, there are some shots where he tries to look like virile He-Man, but most of the time, he looks like a Keanu Reeves surfer dude.
I agree, but I have to say, I like every actor in this movie. I think they're all well cast. I think Camila Mendes plays her role just the right note where she's tough and she's a good fighter, but she's not constantly dominating. She never has that moment like the 87 film, Woman at Arms. You know, there's none of that in there. I do think initially Nicholas Galitzine was kind of off-putting to me as He-Man until I realized what they were doing. That it wasn't a bad performance. It's exactly the performance they want from him to be this hammy and dumb.
Yeah, Ryan Gosling Ken is what they're going for.
Yeah, I like everybody in this film. I can't think of a bad performance in this entire cast.
And yet I can't say that I like it the way that you do. But I get why they're doing it. But I don't know that I love it.
I laughed out loud. Stuart, you probably won't remember this. Marjorie, Were you thinking Attack of the Clones when Adam and Teela were on the Falcon ship there? And it's a replay of Amidala and Anakin from Attack of the Clones. Adam says, "You've gotten so big, as in you've aged. Well, you've aged well. You've grown older." And then Teela goes, "You haven't changed at all." I'm just thinking from Attack of the Clones, Annie, my goodness, you've grown. So have you. Grown more beautiful, I mean. For a senator, I mean. Annie, you'll always be that little boy I knew on Tatooine. I'm like, are they making fun of Attack of the Clones?
I didn't recognize it, but obviously that's what they're doing in that silly, insipid dialogue. Yes. This should be thought of as a comedy. I do really think, and it's probably going to be an adjustment for some, you'd come for Masters of the Universe for grim Game of Thrones action, and it is not that. It is a satire.
But now we finally get back to Eternia. I feel like as long as this film is, there's a couple of scenes that just don't make sense to me, where like dialogue happens. Teela takes him to where the royal guard is hiding, and she's like, "Skeletor will never look for us here." I'm like, where are you? I don't even understand this. Why wouldn't Skeletor look for you there? I don't get this.
Yeah, and obviously the Triclops is watching them, and the tip gets back to Skeletor really quick. Again, I keep forgetting that Skeletor's in this movie. They got to throw in these little bits about how he has a morning ritual of waking up with the sun or whatever, some of this comedy, but he's really not doing anything.
And that pig man who wakes him up is another callback to 87 when they couldn't get Triclops, I think it was in the movie. They made Pig Boy in the movie. So they're homaging Dolph some more.
I did go back and watch that movie, but that little detail, I think you'd have to study the movie. That I most certainly didn't. Anyway, the Royal Guard doesn't like them. They're not charmed that the prince is back. They've got their own system of government, and they don't appreciate Adam's childish names for them. You find out that they aren't named Ram Man and Fisto. That was just what Adam called them when he was drawing them. And again, that feels like some kind of parody about how the animators themselves rushed to name these stupid characters.
Oh, I love it. I love it. I love that that's not really their name. You called me what? Ram Man, because you're a man and you ram. I mean, it wasn't the animators naming these characters. It was the toy makers, and they just were aiming stuff at kids.
This is not for kids, because what he really wants to say is you look like a chode. But he's like, you look like a man that rams is the only way that he can say it. Throughout this movie, and it may stun some parents of smaller ones, but there is a lot of sexual innuendo that's pretty crass.
I was surprised by some of this in this movie, but I have been secretly laughing about butt worms for longer than I should have, and I'm embarrassed by that.
Fisto fisted a goblin once. You know, usually like a movie will slip one in just for the adults, keep them punchy, but I would say it's a running joke to be vulgar.
Later on, Fisto's gonna be like, "Give him head, Ram Man." It's just, it's working for me. I'm laughing.
I hear that very much. It's probably not a surprise to know. I was getting very tired of that very quick. To me, that's always a sign of we don't know what we're doing when we have to go blue.
But I wanted Fisto to make fisting jokes like that meme.
You got it. I know. You really thought that they would never do that. Again, Barbie style, in the same way that the Barbie movie had the cock ring that Ken wore in a recalled doll. I mean, they'll put that stuff in here. They're not afraid to cater to the middle age. In fact, they know that that's the primary audience.
Yeah, I don't think a lot of this landed. Well, did I giggle at some point? Yes. Am I proud of it? No. But I don't think it landed as smartly as Barbie did on a lot of it.
Oh, there's nothing smart about this movie. This movie is dumb as He-Man's rocks in his head, and I'm fine with that. I am fine with this movie being base and a little crass and a little simple.
I mean, it's smarter than you would think because it's postmodern and it's making fun of itself. It's satirical. That requires a certain level of sophistication. But I agree with you. Just because they're doing the same thing doesn't mean they're doing it equally well. But anyway, yeah, let's get the main characters we care about back together. Duncan has been in a jail cell, pissing on himself. He'll vomit on Adam as they're thrown in jail because these rebels don't know what else to do with Adam. They don't want to consider him their prince. They never did like him. I think the bully that used to throw him in the locker is now throwing him in this jail cell. And we'll see that, yes, since he got blasted, he might have preferred to have died on the battlefield. Idris Elba is looking pretty scraggly as a drunken survivor of that opening attack.
Why did they make him a drunk? Was he a drunk in the cartoon?
No, they're just giving him a character arc. He was defeated, and his defeat allowed the king and queen to be captured and Adam to be sent away. And so he's just beating himself up and taking solace in liquor, and his arc is going to be to come back confident and strong at the end of the film.
Yeah, when you sell the idea that I'm perfect and I always win my fight and failure's not an option, well, life will have a way of humbling you. And I do think in middle age, a lot of people that thought they were going to conquer the world get humbled in this way.
Okay, I wasn't sure if he was a drunk in the TV show.
No, but I don't understand this joke about how he reprogrammed a war robot to be a service droid.
I think it's just that's the joke, but this is Roboto from the toy line, who was a male, but he had transparent armor. So at the end of the movie, when she gets her new body, it looks a lot more like the toy than it does here. You may not even know it's Roboto because it's not a man. It's voiced by Kristen Wiig in, honestly, one of her best performances I've seen on film.
Coming from someone that's a hater, you mean?
Yes. I do not like Kristen Wiig. I do like Bridesmaids. I'd say Bridesmaids, then Masters of the Universe and the Kristen Wiig oeuvre.
That's really funny. Okay.
Oh, wow. Well, what's funny is I was sitting there thinking, oh my gosh, that sounds like Kristen Wiig, but surely Kristen Wiig wouldn't do this movie. Wrong.
I mean, you can't go wrong with voice acting, right? It's an easy gig, and sometimes you end up stealing the movie. I think they wanted this robot to be funny. She's got a couple lines here and there that are mildly amusing, but this robot was bizarre to me. It doesn't really ever feel like it fits into the world. It breaks them out of prison, and it allows us to get to another fight scene. Skeletor has found the rebels, and Adam, still thinking as a human resources employee, thinks he can de-escalate and talk himself out of a fight with Trapjaw.
The fact that Trapjaw just doesn't impale him immediately shows that this movie is just intentionally silly. But yes, 1 hour almost to the second into this movie, Sorceress appears, tell him to use the sword and say the words, and I guess he gets stripped naked in front of everyone and floats and is just given new clothes. But again, I don't see him as more muscular, but damn, is this guy ripped. He put in the work for this role. I've seen photos of him before, and he got jacked.
We wouldn't accept a He-Man that didn't, right? I mean, I would say he doesn't look like steroids and overly done the way that the toy line did. He looks like a guy that, works out, a gym rat, but is not an unattainable body.
No, because he did not get this built as Dolph Lundgren did in that. But I think Dolph was built from like Rocky and things like that. Also, I'd like to note they gave him kind of a realistic, achievable image of being built because you could tell he didn't dehydrate before they did the shirtless scenes, because that's usually when you get the huge muscle definition is the guys have to dehydrate for like 3 days, no water and like nothing. And that's how they get it.
That beef jerky look that gets them the statues at the bodybuilding competitions. Yeah, it's not that kind of build. Again, it's a fantasy movie and he is probably 90% of us couldn't look like this, but it doesn't feel like steroids and CGI.
I think a little of that might be simply the amount of time he had to train. He looks great, but much like Chris Hemsworth in that first Thor film, as compared to Avengers and all the other Thor films, you're starting from nothing and building to something. And in the time between 2024 when he was cast and 2025 when this was filmed, this is where he could get. If there is a sequel, there won't be. But if there were to be a sequel, he would, I'm sure, be even larger.
And so, yes, here he is. He does some He-Man things, and then it turns into an aerial battle. They escape in ships, and there's some kind of concentric buzzsaw thing that I don't remember from the cartoon. A wasp ship. I don't know what these things are, but they must be toys.
Oh, absolutely. Every single one of them is a toy. Personally, I'm having so much nostalgia for these characters. I do wish the vehicles looked more like the toys. They don't look very much like the 80s toys did. And that's a little disappointing. I wish I saw the Wing Raider and the Battle Ram and the Talon ship that I had that looked like a bird instead of what Teela's fighting here that just looks like generic ship. But it's close enough, and you want to modernize. You don't want it to be too silly, but also, it is very much going for the tone of a James Gunn film. I was thinking about Dungeons and Dragons, that Honor Among Thieves movie that we reviewed. I was thinking about Guardians. I was even thinking somewhat about the last Superman movie, which was kind of comedic, but also really embracing the comic book origins and bringing in all those side characters.
This would fit in the Marvel world, but it never would fit into the DC Snyderverse.
It was very Guardians-esque, I think, because they opened that door with Guardians. It was wildly and unexpectedly popular. Now, I think James Gunn's influence we're seeing in later years on a lot of the movies.
Yeah, they gave him the DC universe. They said, fix it, and people want comedy in these kinds of fantasy movies. And so we're getting a lot of it here. There's a lot of jokes as he's leaping around and waving when Duncan's trying to warn him. Eventually they crash, and I don't know why the sorceress is there. What does the sorceress want to tell him? Is she trying to tell him he doesn't need the sword in this moment?
Yeah, I don't understand what she was doing later in the movie. Until she shows up at the climax of the movie, it's just here to remind us the sorceress is there. And again, it's only a voiceover role. It's not ever Morena Baccarin. It's just this hawk or whatever he is.
They feel the need to include all of these characters. And if I were a fan of Masters of the Universe, I would probably be grateful for these inclusions. I find them intrusive. Anyway, Man-at-Arms, the only real character that matters. He's found his old suit. He's put it back on, still fits in it, but it's still got the flask. And so we're going to have him throughout Act 2, celebrating small victories with chugging alcohol.
A little nip, yeah. I mean, pretty clever place for a flask.
I know, it makes me wonder, was he always a drunk? Because it seems like that would be the place you'd always have your liquor. But no, we get these scenes here. This is the part I feel could kind of be trimmed up and we could get to things a little bit quicker. Another part of the promotion of this show is they broke the world record drone show by having 1,000 drones light up and create Skeletor and He-Man fighting in the sky over Los Angeles.
Can you imagine if you didn't know that was going to happen and no idea what Skeletor was, and then he's just appearing outside your windows?
So Skeletor shows up looking kind of like drone Skeletor, and he's like, bring me the sword and I'll give you your parents. I like this line. They're alive and well, not well, but they're alive. And if you come, bring me the sword.
Yeah, and we hear this line like, I'm going to go rescue my family because that's what a man does. And we're to understand that Adam is working from this concept in his head that he's trying to be the man that his dad wanted him to be so he can finally look at him and acknowledge him. Mothman, is this a character? It's got to be, right?
Oh, absolutely. They took the Beast Man mold and put green fuzz on him and called him a hero. Yes, he was in the early waves.
Obviously a joke that they would kill off a character here. Skeletor is trying to get answers about who this muscle man crush he's having is. They really do play into that. I mean, Jared Leto throughout this is licking his lips and really salivating over his new nemesis. And when he turns Mossman into mulch, it's another opportunity for his posse to give applause and roll their eyes. But he knows who Prince Adam is, and that means when Prince Adam comes to Snake Mountain, he's got Dad already on the balcony.
This is again where I start to tap out on this part of the movie, because I don't care about his dad and the relationship.
Well, it is the movie. My version of the movie is what I'm seeing is, yes, would he give up his sword to save his dad, or is what he is because of the sword? That's the conflict. If I give up the sword, I don't look like He-Man anymore, and Dad will walk away and not be proud of me. So it ends up being a big fight with things called Spikor. I did like the idea that someone gets impaled on the back of Spikor, and He-Man is sword fighting with both Spikor, and when he turns around, whoever that sucker is stuck on the back.
I did like that. I thought that was a fun use of Spikor, and yeah, that was another toy. But here, Evil Lyn is going to come out and use a spell, and I was a little worried, I will admit, when Alison Brie was cast as Evil Lyn. I'm like, Everybody else in this movie is in their 20s. Is Alison Brie, who's in her 40s. I like her. I've liked her since Community. I think she was good on Mad Men. I really liked that movie Together she did with her husband, Dave Franco.
Oh, is that why she got that gig? I didn't know that was her husband.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know who this is. I haven't seen any of her. She was on a show called Glow as well about the ladies of wrestling.
I didn't see that one, but I was afraid she might be a little old to be Evil Lynn, but I really like her performance here. I think hiring somebody experienced in comedy works. And so when she's casting her spell and Skeletor's like, enough chanting, he's frozen.
But this is the dramatic scene. This is where the ceiling falls in, Dad is crushed, and He-Man lifts the rocks and wants to be able to tell him. This is what I mean about weird tone, right? We've had this jokiness, but this is supposed to be a sincere, hit you moment in the heart where he's like, Dad, I'm finally everything you wanted me to be. And Dad's like, I wish I let you be you. And he dies before Son can tell him I love him. This is not working as bringing tears to anyone's eyes.
I felt nothing because we spent not enough time at the beginning with their relationship, and then there wasn't any more.
It's too cliche. I mean, again, who cares about this dad? Was he even a figure that anyone owned? I don't think you'd want a King Randor.
I actually wrote to Mattel as a child and said, Mattel, I have all your toys. Please make a King Randor. And they sent me some free mini comics and said, thank you for your letter. Thank you for being a fan of He-Man. I actually wrote to the president of Mattel. And I got a letter back saying that there are a lot of characters that they were looking at making, but King Randor was on the list. Now, I was out of the toys by the time they made King Randor, but I wanted a King Randor badly.
Wow.
Okay. All right. Well, it was you. You're the one. So let me then ask you, are you having these emotional moments they want you to have?
No, I don't know this actor who's playing Randor. I feel like he was a bad dad, and this dying declaration of I should have been better is too little too late.
Way too late, exactly. We're thinking that he was cruel in that opening scene. He needs to be the one redeemed, not Adam. Since tears aren't coming, let's get back to comedy. Skeletor finally has his sword. He wants the power, and they come up with this contrivance that it only works if he goes to Castle Grayskull. The climax of this movie is about rushing back to the castle because...
What's funny to me is in that Kevin Smith He-Man show, Skeletor got the sword, said by the power of Grayskull, I have the power, and became like Super Skeletor. So I thought, wow, they're really going with that. But no, they're going for comedy. And I laughed. I like that they do the camera angle on Skeletor just like they do on He-Man, the top-down angle as he lifts the sword. And then as he kind of just goes, as he's trying to push the sword higher up as if that's why it didn't work. I like that Evil Lynn starts by saying, do you need the sword? Aren't you enough? You have me. You have the king.
If you believed in yourself, you wouldn't put all of this on a sword. Yeah, that's the theme of the movie.
Are they dating?
Who?
Evil Lynn and Skeletor.
Well, she kind of has contempt for him, but at the same time, it's a codependent relationship, right? She keeps coming back. She'll walk away when he gets decapitated, and then the last stinger is her coming back for the skull. So, yeah, she's in it for some reason, kind of like Together. She's just stuck on this skull.
In the prequel book I read, she was trying to overthrow Skeletor. She did think he wasn't a good enough evil leader and that she would be better, and so she was plotting against him. But here, when she says, you have me, that seems to be like they have a relationship. In that Kevin Smith one, she actually tricked Skeletor by trying to bed him, making me think they hadn't, and now they were about to. And so she seduces him when he's Super Skeletor. So it's, again, kind of like He-Man Teela. It's there if you want it to be there.
Yeah, I do believe that the fanfic is probably better than the real thing. But anyway, Adam has been reduced back to human. He was He-Man for Dad, and Dad saw it and wasn't impressed. And now he's returning as boy to mother in a jail cell. And they all decide to say self-help things to each other. And before you know it, Duncan's throwing away the flask, and Fisto is happy to be fisting again. Adam is, I think he repeats the Dolph Lundgren advice. There's something about getting behind ourselves. And they all end up pushing the bars over with the help from Roboto.
There's got to be something cut here, too, right? Because when they come out of their cells, they're all coughing, and there's like a gas, and I'm like, oh, we're bringing in Stinkor. They must have the skunk smell everywhere, and that's why they're all choking. No cut, and now nobody's choking anymore.
No, I think the joke is if you blow up all that rock, that's a lot of particulate in the air. They come out like looking tough, and then, it's funny to watch tough people cough and look sick for a second. They play, and I noticed in the 3 people in my audience, they really responded to this. This is where they play the theme to Highlander, the TV show, the Queen song.
Yeah, the movie. That was in the original Highlander movie.
Was it really? Okay, I associate it with the show.
Yeah, that's what Queen wrote it for. And this score, I absolutely think Daniel Pemberton has become a modern day movie score master. In the era of Michael Giacchino and stuff being done by Zimmer for Nolan, I feel like scores have just become sound and not music. But this guy, I've listened to the Across the Spider-Verse and Into the Spider-Verse scores many times. He also did Project Hail Mary earlier this year that had a really good score to it that I liked. And here, he's partnered with Brian May of Queen. When you hear all the electric guitar here, during the first jailbreak with Drunken and the robot, the guitar kicks in, and I'm like, oh, they're going to play a pop song. No, it's just the score, but Brian May is shredding. And now they're playing Queen.
Can I just put out there that I feel like when you criticize scores, you're mad that they're not like processionals or anthems. You want fist-pumping music. That's usually what I hear you requesting. Why can't they make this rock concert? Not all scores have to be that.
Not a rock concert. John Williams is not a rock concert.
He does anthems. Don't tell me that Superman theme is not an anthem.
James Horner, John Williams, the classics. I love their stuff.
Anthems. When composers don't do that, I hear you criticize.
You're right, because my favorite Giacchino score is Star Trek 2009, where he did do an anthem for it. You're right. I want scores to be cinematic, and this is.
This sounds like the Trans-Siberian Orchestra. I do love Queen. I'm indifferent to Brian May. It just had the same kind of like heavy metal-esque but safe sound.
They're making a very strategic choice not to do the cartoon themes until the very end. And that's obviously one of the big associations I have with He-Man. Even if you don't know all the characters, you know and can probably sing the cartoon song. Anyway, we could talk about all the things running around. Cringer is back and they ride him and he makes a joke that he doesn't have the armor we associate with him. Whatever. Statues fall. Lots of things happen. To me, the important thing is Adam gets the sword back, but it doesn't actually protect him. It ends up being chopped to bits by Skeletor's staff.
The only thing I like here is the Duncan Roboto interplay. I like that Duncan has found his armor on the ship. Teela kept it in a box named Dad, and he gets the armor back on and throws the liquor away. And Roboto tried to kill him, but he gives Roboto back the battle bot thing so that they can fight and he can have his rematch with Trapjaw.
That didn't make any sense. Was this a bad robot? Is this the Terminator? And he switched sides with it? I heard the words and I understand what they were saying, but I was like, why does he think that this robot is going to kill him?
Well, it tried to once.
In a time we didn't see and nothing ever established in cartoon, book, or now.
Maybe in the prequel book somewhere, but I didn't get that far.
Yeah, and he also tells Teela, you're the man I wished you could be. They're trying to do a lot here with these supporting characters and just whiffing the ball, right? Like this is just half-hearted efforts to try and hit emotional beats.
The emotions aren't working, the action is working. When Trapjaw comes in that ship and blows apart the robot, I feel bad for the robot. I love Duncan getting in there and ripping Trapjaw's jaw open, throwing a grenade in there because Trapjaw had a grenade earlier he used to blow up the kingdom, and shoving it in his mouth. I love Duncan's redemption. I'm satisfied with CGI Cringer, who does talk. I said I wasn't sure if Cringer would be in this movie. I knew Battle Cat would be, but I liked the Cringer in this movie. And of course, he's going up against Beastman. As I always had with my toys, girls only fight girls, boys can't punch girls. So you get Teela versus Evil Lynn. Although I love Evil Lynn's like, why don't we just leave? Why don't we just leave it to them? And then, yes, Skeletor, He-Man. Yeah, it's a little cheesy, but this movie's cheesy. So it fits when the sword shatters. At first, I thought the sword was a replica. Like, he never had the right sword. Like, the sword from that comic shop was not the sword he was supposed to have. But it is the sword, but Sorceress just kept some prop replica in the castle. And really, the vessel of the magic of Grayskull was Adam and not the sword.
Yeah. Again, this is them really working hard. And like that scene in Barbie where I think she finds Rhea Perlman, like this wrinkled old woman, and says, "You're beautiful." They're going to try to tell us everything they drilled into our heads as kids about what being a man is isn't true. You have it innately inside of you. You don't need the muscles. You don't need the phallic sword. You can just be who you are. That so was not the message of He-Man. But boy, they're trying to say that it is in this cheesy-ass moment.
Except it's not, because they immediately undo it because he says, I have the power. The phallic sword reassembles itself. If you want to really go there, the sword gets erect again after being flaccid, and then he becomes Muscle Man.
To tell Skeletor, we can do this one or two different ways. Again, this movie does not want to send the same message because it knows the parent groups would be very mad, particularly in this day and age. The 80s was one thing. We definitely had set in stone gender roles, but we don't have those now, and people would not want to hear you have to be a man a certain way. They try to have it both ways, Arnie.
I will say that when He-Man says to Skeletor, let's talk this out, somebody in my audience went, come on, really loudly. They did not want that.
Yeah, exactly. The true 80s fan, which is why they play it partly as a joke. Sometimes this HR stuff is mockable, and yet they also acknowledge the ultra macho stuff is also mockable. They're in a bind. And so we have what I guess is some kind of illusion Skeletor puts Adam through, in which his self-doubt comes in all different versions. He's on a date with Skeletor. He's at the gym with Skeletor. Skeletor pops up in a tie at the office.
I loved that tie at the office. Plus, I love the detail. Skeletor had a skull photo on the work badge. He was dressed in short sleeves. He was wandering around with coffee like Lumberg.
That's what made me think of. He was Lumberg.
Well, I'm not sure because, again, the suggestiveness, I was pretty used to like the fisting jokes by now, but when Skeletor says, I'm thinking about the long sword dangling between your generous thighs, I mean, wow. I was like, okay, they're really going to make it that explicit.
And I thought it was funny because I didn't know anything about the director that at the gym, Skeletor had like a skull version of the Nike swoosh on his sweatshirt. And now I know how the director got the clearance to use the Nike logo.
Anyway, yes, He-Man can believe in himself again, pull the sword out after being stabbed because Sorceress did something, finally.
She just told him something. He did it. But she said, you know, it's you. You've had the power all along. And when Skeletor won't talk it out, one thing I love about this that is so retro is He-Man has a move. He has this silly, stupid uppercut that would never work in a boxing match. It is so video gamey an uppercut. It reminds me of Mike Tyson's Punch-Out on Nintendo. He does it against Trapjaw and his hands hurt because it's a metal jaw. He does it to Skeletor here. I wish He-Man wasn't invincible because he's going to get piled on by guys. And I'm like, oh, they took He-Man down finally. It took 12 guys. And he just stands up and throws them all off. He uses his bracelets like Wonder Woman. He deflects bolts with his magic bracelets. I thought that was a little weird, but nothing will even slow He-Man down. He's just unstoppable and a force of nature.
Yeah, and you can be too when you believe in yourself and get a magic damn sword.
No, it's not the sword. It's the muscles. The muscles are inside him all along.
We're not to think that Adam looked like this at the gym. We're not.
But he did.
Arnie, you're focused on the actor's physique working out and that they try to hide in every shot.
You know what I think they should have done is what Captain America the First Avenger did. hire a different body actor to be skinny Adam and have this actor be the head, and then let him show his ripped muscles when he He-Mans out. I know that would have cost a lot more. It probably would have been a $300 million movie instead of a $200 million movie.
No, it wouldn't have been that much. But yes, they could have used digital fakery. I mean, again, he could have filmed his scenes before he worked out and then did the rest of the movie. Kind of like Tom Hanks taking a break in Castaway.
But here, the good guys never kill the bad guys. It's Skeletor using that magic horn staff to shoot a bolt at He-Man that he deflects, and it's Skeletor's own attack that kills him at the end, or at least leaves him as only a skull floating on the ground. But I'm loving this action. I'm loving Mechanic getting back in it. I'm loving Ram Man and Fisto embracing the fisting jokes during this climax.
Loving it or liking it?
Loving it.
I'm really scared. I'm just like in awe of Arnie turned into like a 7-year-old boy again and is like super freaking excited about this movie. I had no idea he had so much He-Man knowledge in there.
I knew him when, and it doesn't surprise me. And I do think, again, this is going to work best on those that once believed in Filmation's version.
And then after the climax, I love how Filmation they go. They have all the heroes standing around with their backs arched going, ha, 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 ha.
Hands on hips. Yeah, that's how every episode ended. Hands on the hips, laughing about something not funny.
Yes, that was so great. I loved it so much.
It's very studied. Again, if you know the cartoon, the joke works. If you don't, I guess it's just silly. And Hussein's here, of course. We see that the roommate that didn't believe in all of this has somehow migrated to Eternia and is one of them now.
Yeah, I don't know how that happened. It's very confusing. And I'd forgotten all about that guy.
They had a ship that can fold space and go back and forth whenever they wanted. They just didn't know where Adam was. They could have gotten him at any time if they knew where he was.
No, they did. The mom said, I'll send him back to my home world.
But then the mom was captured, so the rebels never knew where he went.
Okay, yes, they've cleverly scripted this.
But Adam is there. He's wearing a pink jacket and looking so much like Adam from the Filmation cartoon. Man-at-Arms has his more golden armor here, new armor from rebuilding. And it's so funny when, like, something bad happens and Adam's like, we gotta go, Cringer, come on. And Ram Man and Fisto are like, he knows we know it's him, right? Could we just, like, turn away and he turns? I mean...
It's telling that the most pointed jokes are the ones making fun of the property. That was always so stupid that he had to have a secret identity. But Idris gets it.
But 3 credit scenes. I couldn't believe there were going to be 3 of them. The first, such a smile on my face. Orko coming out to give the lesson of the movie. I'm like, real life Orko. And in the background, I don't know why they didn't put him in the movie, but Merman is like hanging out behind Orko.
Yeah, this was the first time the audience applauded. And the whole time, and I'm talking about 4 people behind you, and not me, but yes, 4 people. Orko was it. Orko was the sweet spot that really delivered. By this point, you had given up. If you had even been thinking he was going to be in the movie, you had given up. But yes, this is exactly how the cartoon ended, and they want you to think about that cartoon.
Arnie, before we went in, as we're driving up to the movie theater, he said, I'm calling it now. There's going to be a mid-credit scene with She-Ra, and you're going to see boots. And he was exactly right. We got a behind view of She-Ra.
We don't know the actress playing her in the sequel that will never be made.
Correct. I know the actress who plays her here. It's somebody who hasn't really done much. Her name is Lauren Saliu, and she is uncredited. But yes, we get this She-Ra bit, and they bring the score in. They do the transformation with the swirl like She-Ra had. They have someone say, Force Captain Adora, and she's like, not anymore. They also have these outlines in between the Orko scene and the She-Ra scene. They have like neon day glow character outlines, and I noticed before they gave us the She-Ra scene, She-Ra and her unicorn were one of the day glow characters, as was Gwildor, Billy Barty from the 87 movie. He was one of those day glow characters there. I'm sure there's more Easter eggs. I'm watching this in a theater. I can't hit pause, but I bet when I get this on 4K, and I will, I'll be able to see a lot more Easter eggs in there.
The end credits were 1000% influenced by James Gunn, if not a direct ripoff.
I was only paying attention to the stingers in between, but they end the way that Marvel movies and most of these kinds of movies end, with teases of what we had already watched. I'm usually looking over my notes and doing other things and waiting to find out. But they're really sticking to the She-Ra thing. Like we had Mom say, I'm holding out hope for the day I see both of them. So they're going to keep that storyline of them being secret twins, even.
And I did notice during these end credits, Marjorie, one of your favorite bands that I didn't even know was still around wrote this Masters of the Universe song at the end, The Darkness. You know, the people who did I Believe in a Thing Called Love 20 years ago.
I know who The Darkness is. They're kind of one note. The rest of their stuff is not fabulous. But if you haven't heard The Darkness, go look that up. It's incredulous, but they kind of like fizzled. The lead singer's got anorexia. It's a whole thing.
Speaking of anorexia, we end on Skeletor. He's coming back if they were actually making more.
And they're not going to. This movie is tanking, but would you want them to? Is this 2026's Dungeons & Dragons movie? Marjorie, Stewart, do you recommend Masters of the Universe? Marjorie.
Well, I didn't see the Dungeons & Dragons movie, so I can't compare it. However, I was leery of this movie. As you know, I'm a huge fan of the 87 movie for nostalgic reasons. Saw it with my mom, saw a lot of movies with my mom. And I was not really hopeful for this movie, and that paid off. I don't think it's a great movie. I think it has some funny parts. I did enjoy the Dolph Lundgren scene just because it was Dolph Lundgren passing the torch, and it was done in a funny way, in a nice way that wasn't overly cheesy. I think my opinion of this movie also suffers from the fact that I do not know a lot of the characters, and my character knowledge is nowhere near as deep as Arnie and even Stewart's, and I found a lot of it silly, boring. But I was so torn on this movie because it's not good, but some of it was kind of amusing and entertaining. I liked him when he was on Earth. I really thought the Earth stuff was good. And I think that he has potential in comedy, not as a sex symbol, but as someone who can do comedy and has good comic timing and can do reactions associated with that. So I'm going to give it a red arrow. I found myself checking the watch a lot of times to see how much longer this would go on. I thought it drug in a lot of parts, and the enjoyable parts do not outweigh the parts where I was over it.
Stewart.
Yeah, I have to give two different reviews. There's my own personal hell of I hate every minute of this movie. I want out. I can't stand this universe. I don't like it. There is no master of this universe. They're all sad sacks, and I just can't stand it and don't want to watch it. But I had to talk to myself, wipe the vomit from my mouth, and say, but I'm here to review a movie. Did they do a good job of bringing that cartoon and that toy line back in 2026? Because there is going to be a segment of the audience, apparently not very big one, but there are people that are going to absolutely love this and eat it up. And were they well served in the way that this movie put it together, what I would call Barbie style? I think that that was really the thing that made Mattel confident they could go so much into this blue comedy and have such a doofus play He-Man and Prince Adam. I still think they got problems with the movie. I don't think that the humor is as funny as it thinks it is, and the movie is too goddamn long, an hour to get to He-Man. The stuff on Earth, I feel like that's the strongest fish out of water stuff. Maybe that's where the climax should have happened. I feel like a lot of characters weren't used very well, and you'll probably still have grumblings. I don't think it's a very good movie, on top of it being a movie I never wanted to watch in the first place. So it's either a strong red arrow or a mild not recommend, but no endorsement from me.
Wow, I really thought this would be 3 green arrows. I thought everyone would be won over by the Guardians of the Galaxy, Dungeons & Dragons level of fun. You know how some movie reviews, people say it made me feel like a kid again? Well, this movie did that to me a little, but more it made me want to be a kid again. I was 12 years old when I saw the Dolph Lundgren Masters of the Universe in theaters in '87, and I was so let down. Now, I hadn't bought He-Man toys in years at that point, but I still watched the cartoon and She-Ra on TV, and I wanted to live that fun on the big screen, and what I got was cheap and looked nothing like that. But this movie, Goddamn, if this movie had come out in 1987, it would have blown my mind. I even wonder if it could have changed my life. This could have reignited my He-Man love to such a degree I might have started buying toys again. I still had all my old ones at that point. Maybe I'd have never become a Trekkie because I'd have been so into Masters of the Universe. Who knows where my life would have led?
Marjorie, intervention. I'm just telling you. He's saying, oh, I might have gone crazy in 1987. You need to watch The Pocketbook right now.
Well, we're lucky the full moon already passed.
And these toys will all be on clearance. You could probably pick up this stuff for $100 in about a month.
Yes, I will be watching him very closely, trust me.
I have no doubt whatsoever 12-year-old Arnie would have loved every frame of this film. It adapted the material as any movie should, but it was faithful enough to give me a true He-Man vibe. Now, as an adult, I actually appreciate this movie in ways I couldn't have back then. I like the double entendre jokes, sure. But more, I like the way the movie lovingly parodies the Filmation cartoon and the silliness of the whole premise. The film has its problems. I think the pacing is off big time. It suffers from the origin story failing of needing to set up the character so much that it feels way too long until the hero shows up. Every plot beat is completely obvious. Other than the time I thought they may kill Idris Elba in the prologue, the rest was more telegraphed than Zimmerman's alliance with Mexico. And while I like the humor, I feel like it's trying too hard to be Guardians of the Galaxy and not succeeding even as well as Dungeons & Dragons Honor Among Thieves. It feels like the direct-to-streaming movie Amazon would make aping Guardians, which is better than an Asylum ripoff film, but still derivative and still lesser. I like the cast. I don't love the cast. I can't say Nicholas Galitzine is my He-Man, but I think he works for the atmosphere and the style of the film they made. He looks the part well enough, but I never really got into him. I just enjoyed a lot of the side characters and the world building more than I did anything regarding Adam. And that's telling. If I don't love our hero, that's a big problem. I'm enjoying Mechanic, Ram Man, and Fisto, and Trapjaw, and Beast Man, and Spycore more than I'm enjoying He-Man and Teela. But I think it's a fun Wizard of Oz for boys. We meet weird characters along the way, and the way Glinda the Good Witch shows up and says, "You had the magic in you all along. You didn't need the wizard to go home. Here our sorceress tells Adam the magic is in you all along." Themes of the movie are muddied. I don't feel like it is a rejection or embracing of the manosphere, which is so timely in 2026. It could have taken a stance one way or another, but in this red state versus blue state situation we live in, it wanted to ride the line instead of showing that it's red-pilled or blue-pilled. But it was a fun movie. I'm sad that it's going to tank. I'm sad we will never get another He-Man movie in my lifetime. But if we never get another He-Man movie, at least we got one good one. It's a recommend.
I'm not even sure we'll get any more big blockbuster movies after this summer. Grogu and all these things flopping so hard, and yet YouTube series are raking in the box office. It's definitely a changing landscape. I don't think this movie is a huge failure. It is a huge flop financially. I think there's an audience for this. They will like this. This will be rediscovered, and people will say, oh, this is not nearly as bad as I was told it was.
No, this is Honor Among Thieves all over again. People are going to see this later and be like, oh, we should have supported it in the time.
I agree. I think some people will feel that way.
I won't feel that way. Absolutely not.
But I promise I'm not so jazzed about this. I'm not buying any popcorn buckets or sword cups or toys.
Check his closet. Check his closet.
But you did think this Castle Grayskull popcorn bucket was really cool, you told me.
I'm telling you, I'll never do this again. Okay. Check all bags, Marjorie.
I know the procedures. It's okay. I may call you for an intervention, fly you down here, and have a long conversation with Arnie about consumerism.
Okay, I'm here for it.
It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. I'm not getting into Mattel, period. But I enjoyed this movie. I'll order this movie, and I'll finish watching the Kevin Smith Masters of the Universe stuff And then He-Man is in my rear window forever because we've got a lot of movies to watch this summer.
Yeah, we're going back to the MCU. There's a new Spider-Man movie, Brand New Day, and we have a bunch of D-plus series that we just hadn't gotten to. This feels like the time to get all of that in. Next week, we're going back to, well, a real surprise that she got her own spinoff. Agatha, you might remember her from WandaVision. Agatha All Along. 9 episodes of a comedic wit show with Patti LuPone, of all people. I'm really curious what the hell that is. We'll find out next Tuesday.
Yeah, we've got a lot of Marvel coming up, plus Toy Story coming to theaters very soon. So we're going to be picking up DC, we're going to be picking up Toy Story, and then Spider-Man, perhaps the movie that is running for me to like it best this summer over He-Man.
I wonder if that could make money. Again, the story feels like everything Hollywood is doing is a money suck, and everything that 20-year-old boys are doing is what everyone wants. Well, we'll find out. In the meantime, this Friday, if you're a June patron, I can't believe it's almost 20 years old, but we've got an explosive satire of war movies to talk about. Tropic Thunder.
Get some bonus podcasts by being a patron of $10 or more. Over 100 exclusive bonus podcasts. We've done some Vietnam films like Apocalypse Now and Full Metal Jacket for patrons. And now we're doing a Vietnam War movie parody for patrons. Tropic Thunder 2008, the year Robert Downey Jr. went from uninsurable to on top of the world. Iron Man at the start of summer, Tropic Thunder at the end of summer. My 2 favorite movies of that year, and I don't know which I like better. We will be discussing that this Friday if you're a patron on Podbean, Patreon, or Apple Podcasts, $10 or more. And we want to give a shout out to some of our patrons right now.
I'll go ahead and start, and I'm going to apologize if I mispronounce anyone's name. I did not intend to. Tom Ward, Julian Lewis, Chris Harris, Jeff Wade, Andrew Doran, Darker Hue Studios, Kent Lyons, Trevor Harrison, Wajdi Badir, Alejandro Avila, Simon Brennan, Sean Burgess.
I actually think you pronounce some of those better than we do usually. We've said some of those names very differently, and I'm like, I think that's right. I want to give shout outs to Gerard Lavelle, Timothy Graham, Jeremy Mills, Sean O'Keefe, Gila Torre Yates, Michael Windsor, Jeremy Smith, A.T. White, Martin D. Hibbets, Nathan Williams, Shonuff Stephen Bell, and Jeffrey Gaudreau.
And don't forget about Mark Burns, Tommy Woodward, Lee Addison, Joe Black, Lee Dragg, Lucas Doshier, Tony Lanzalata, Jeff Gannon, Tom Yannick, Mark Muskiki, Daniel McNally, Neil McCauley.
But wait, there's more. We've got Andy Craik, Patrick Favor, Adrian Butler, Azana Reed, Robert Redden, Garrett Collins, Mohabir Kemraj, Jay Thunder, Nick, which is probably the hardest one, Joshua Klein, Cody Patterson, and Sean Williams.
And want to shout out to Brian Irwin, Yojo, Bryce Langford, Michael Brannon, Brent, Tobiah Heinrich, Jean-Marc Bovee, J. Clark Fisher, Dimitri from Belgium, Now Playing Fan, and Ruddix.
And we got Chris Cross. I don't know if he makes me want to jump or go sailing. QXUVZASN. Is that a word? Quaxazam, Kiefer 51, T Ward 1971, T Costa 2176, Coke is G, SG Harsh, Seamus Finlayson, Hey You, Fisher JA12, Grand Canyon, ZBGB, and Functionary 1. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Absolutely. We couldn't do this show without you, and we hope you enjoy all the bonus podcasts you get. So thank you for listening to our Masters of the Universe retrospective. We'll be back next week with Marvel. And until then, good journey.
That's it. I finished.
Of course, my lord.
When I raise my fist like that, I'm done.
Yes.
That is the crescendo.
We know for the future, my lord.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Now Playing Podcast.
My time for talk is over.
We've been putting out a new free movie review every week since 2011.
Is that all you've got? I was pulling my punches.
If you're still with us, you're our kind of listener.
Yes, just like the old days.
Now Playing is 100% listener supported. No ads, no corporate backing.
But it is for the good of the Horde. It must be done.
If you want more, and we've got a lot more, head to nowplayingpodcast.com/donate.
I must possess all, or I possess nothing.
For $10 a month, you get exclusive reviews, full bonus series, and access to shows you won't hear anywhere else.
Can't do this alone. I'm with you.
Help keep the show going at nowplayingpodcast.com/donate.
I guess we can use all the help we can get.
If you like what we do, leaving a quick 5-star review at your podcast store helps more people find the show. It really does make a difference.
Tell me about the loneliness of good, He-Man. Is it equal to the loneliness of evil?
Now Playing is a team effort.
I need every man, woman, or whatever that is.
Produced by Arnie Carvalho.
Are you a master? Yes, you are. I know that.
Content manager Jason Latham.
I don't believe it. I've got a lot of serious work to do. You're acting like Hawkins.
Edited by Drew and Arnie.
A work of art takes time, Cringer.
Credits read by Brock.
From now on, my friend, you are part of the Great Rebellion.
Artwork by Joey.
At last it's finished. A thing of beauty.
Skeletor performed by Dan Milano.
Well said, Lord Skeletor. Poetry.
Now Playing Podcast is made possible in part thanks to our executive producers, Andrew Doran, Brent, Chris Harris, Garrett Collins, Jeff Gannon, Julian Lewis, Michael Brannon, Morgan Beck, Tom Ward, and Tony Lanzalata. Thank you all for your support.
The very fate of the universe may depend on your success.
The opinions expressed in this podcast are those of the individual hosts and do not necessarily reflect the views of Venganza Media Incorporated.
Now, or are you afraid of learning the truth about the Horde?
I'm afraid of nothing.
Then you'll go?
I'll think about it.
This podcast is not affiliated with, endorsed by, or approved by any entity associated with the films discussed.
Don't say I didn't give you a chance. When this is over, you're going to jail. Accessory to assault, resisting arrest, endangering lives, I guarantee you. You and all your buddies, I'm going to put you away for 850 years.
All movie clips and music are the property of their respective copyright holders and are used for review and commentary purposes. No infringement is intended.
It's not nice to cause trouble for the evil Horde.
Now Playing Podcast is a trademark of Venganza Media Incorporated and may not be used without express written permission.
You carry the power of Grayskull.
This has been a Venganza Media production. Copyright 2026. All rights reserved.
Keep this with you, and Eternia will always be near.
I just want to say that I feel like fisting is having a moment in 2026 between Project Hail Mary and now He-Man. So we shouldn't have sent the guy that just recovering from stomach stuff to go eat at Denny's.
I'm not blaming the burger for vomiting. I'm not blaming them. The burger was whatever. It was a lot, but I think the problem was me.
If you had had a Glenn Powell as He-Man, although Glenn Powell's track record is miss or miss, but
Yeah, you really want to put money down on that? I mean, there's no way to know.
I'm still recovering from the King Randor figure that you requested and then grew out of toys.
Yeah, that's sweet that you would actually want, like, the character.
But it's peak Arnie, isn't it? I mean, it really is like... I bet I know who helped you write that letter, too.
I wrote it on my own on Jim's computer.
Yeah, uh-huh.